For decades, Maury Povich stood at the center of family truth and DNA revelations. Calm voice, one envelope, and a sentence that could change lives forever. But some stories never made it to that famous stage. Some truths were too heavy even for the brightest studio lights. This is one of those stories. Jason Miller had always been proud of his family. His wife, Lauren, his son, Ethan, his younger brother, Marcus. They were close, closer than most families. Sunday dinners every week, holidays together, vacations where all of them piled into the same beach house and argued over who got the best room. Jason considered himself lucky. He had a beautiful wife, a healthy son, and a brother who was also his best friend. He didn't know that his brother was also his son's father. It started with a medical emergency. Ethan was 16 years old when he collapsed during basketball practice. One moment he was running down the court, the next he was on the floor, unconscious, his teammates screaming for help. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. By the time Jason and Lauren got to the hospital, Ethan was already in surgery. The diagnosis was a ruptured spleen, a congenital defect that had gone undetected for 16 years. The doctors saved his life, but they warned that Ethan might need a blood transfusion, possibly even an organ donation, if complications arose. We'll need to test immediate family members for compatibility, the doctor said. Parents and siblings are usually the best matches. Jason didn't hesitate. Test me, test my wife, whatever he needs. The blood tests came back 2 days later. Jason was sitting in the hospital waiting room when the doctor approached him. Something about the man's expression made Jason's stomach drop. Mr. Miller, can we speak privately? They walked to a small consultation room at the end of the hall. The doctor closed the door behind them. Your son is recovering well, he began. The surgery was successful, and we don't anticipate any further complications. Jason exhaled. That's great news. However, the doctor paused. During the blood typing process, we discovered an anomaly. An anomaly? Your blood type is a positive. Your wife's blood type is B positive. Your son's blood type is O negative. Jason frowned. Okay, what does that mean? The doctor hesitated. Mr. Miller, based on the blood type combinations, it's genetically impossible for you to be Ethan's biological father. The words didn't make sense. Jason stared at the doctor, waiting for him to laugh, to admit it was some kind of mistake, some clerical error that would be sorted out in a few hours. But the doctor wasn't laughing. That can't be right, Jason said. Ethan is my son. I was there when he was born. I cut the umbilical cord. I've raised him for 16 years. I understand this is difficult to hear. Blood type inheritance follows strict genetic rules. A parent with type A blood and a parent with type B blood cannot produce a child with type O blood. The genetics simply don't allow it. Jason felt the room spinning. So what are you saying, that my wife cheated on me? I'm not in a position to speculate about the circumstances. I'm simply informing you of the medical findings. You may want to consider a DNA paternity test to get definitive answers. Jason walked out of the consultation room in a daze. His son was recovering from surgery. His marriage might be over, and everything he thought he knew about his family was crumbling around him. He didn't confront Lauren that night. He couldn't. Not with Ethan still in the hospital. Not with everything so fragile and uncertain. Instead, Jason went home alone. He sat in the dark living room, staring at photographs on the wall. Ethan as a baby, Ethan's first birthday, Ethan learning to ride a bike with Jason running beside him. 16 years of memories, 16 years of loving this boy as his own. And now a doctor was telling him that none of it was real. Jason didn't sleep that night. He just sat there, watching the photographs, wondering who his son really was. The DNA test was Jason's idea. He ordered it online without telling Lauren. He told himself he needed to know the truth before he confronted her. He told himself he was being rational, logical, careful, but really he was just terrified. Terrified that the doctor was right. Terrified that his wife had betrayed him. Terrified that the son he loved more than anything in the world wasn't really his. The test arrived 3 days later. Jason swabbed his cheek in the bathroom while Lauren was at work. He swabbed Ethan's cheek while the boy was still groggy from pain medication, telling him it was just another hospital test. He mailed the samples back the same day. And then he waited. The results arrived 2 weeks later. Jason was alone when he opened the email. Lauren was at the grocery store. Ethan was upstairs playing video games, fully recovered from his surgery. Jason's hands were shaking as he clicked on the attachment. The document loaded slowly, too slowly. Each second felt like an hour. And then the results appeared. weird. Jason Miller, Ethan Miller, 0% probability of paternity. However, genetic markers indicate a close biological relationship consistent with uncle-nephew. Jason read the results 3 times. 0% probability of paternity, but uncle-nephew relationship. That didn't make sense. If Jason wasn't Ethan's father, how could he be Ethan's uncle? Unless the biological father was someone who shared Jason's DNA. Someone close enough genetically to be mistaken for a sibling relationship. Someone like a brother. Jason felt the blood drain from his face. Marcus, his younger brother, his best friend, the man who had been part of their lives since the day Ethan was born. Jason didn't want to believe it. There had to be another explanation. A mistake in the test, a contaminated sample, something, anything other than the obvious truth. But the more he thought about it, the more the pieces fell into place. Marcus had always been close to Lauren. Too close, maybe. They laughed at the same jokes. They finished each other's sentences. They had inside references that Jason never quite understood. He had always thought it was harmless. Family bonding, the natural closeness that came from years of shared holidays and Sunday dinners. But what if it was something else? What if it had always been something else? Jason confronted Marcus first. He drove to his brother's apartment that night. He didn't call ahead. He didn't warn him. He just showed up at the door, the DNA results folded in his pocket, his heart pounding so hard he could barely breathe. Marcus opened the door with a smile. "Hey, bro, what are you doing here? Everything okay with Ethan?" Jason pushed past him into the apartment. "We need to talk." Marcus frowned. "What's going on? You look terrible." Jason pulled the paper from his pocket. He unfolded it slowly, deliberately, and handed it to his brother. "Explain this." Marcus took the paper. He read it once. His face went pale. He read it again, and then he sank onto the couch like a man whose legs had just given out. "Jason, is it true?" Marcus didn't answer. "Is Ethan your son?" The silence stretched between them. Seconds, minutes, an eternity. And then Marcus nodded. "Yes." Jason didn't remember throwing the first punch. He just remembered the rage, the blinding, consuming fury that took over his body like a wildfire, burning away every rational thought. He remembered his fist connecting with Marcus's jaw, the sick crack of bone against bone. He remembered them crashing into the coffee table, sending lamps and picture frames flying across the room. He remembered screaming things he couldn't take back, words filled with 16 years of unknowing betrayal. "You slept with my wife? You watched me raise your son? For 16 years you came to my house, ate at my table, and you knew?" Marcus was bleeding from his lip. He didn't fight back. He just lay there on the floor, taking every punch like he knew he deserved it all. "I'm sorry," he kept saying. "I never meant for this to happen." But sorry wasn't enough, not for this. Jason drove home in silence. His knuckles were bruised and swollen. His shirt was torn. His mind was blank, empty, hollowed out by a betrayal he couldn't comprehend. His brother. His wife, 16 years. How many Sunday dinners had he sat across from Marcus, laughing, joking, treating him like family, while Marcus knew the truth? How many times had Lauren kissed Jason goodnight and thought about his brother? How many lies had been told in that house? Lauren was waiting for him when he got home. She was sitting at the kitchen table, her face pale, her eyes red. Marcus had called her. She already knew. "Jason, don't!" He threw the DNA results on the table. "I know everything. I know Ethan isn't mine. I know he's Marcus's son. What I don't know is how you could look me in the eye for 16 years and pretend nothing happened." Lauren was crying now. "It was one time, one mistake, right before we got married. Marcus and we were drunk, and you and I had just had that huge fight, and I was scared, and I don't want excuses. I want the truth. Did you know Ethan was his?" Lauren hesitated, and that hesitation told Jason everything. "You knew," he whispered. "You knew, and you let me believe he was mine. I wasn't sure. The timing was close. I told myself it could have been yours. But you suspected. All these years, you suspected and you said nothing." Lauren reached for his hand. Jason pulled away. "Does Marcus know? Has he always known?" Lauren looked down at the table. "He found out 5 years ago. He figured it out on his own. He came to me and asked, and I admitted it. 5 years. For 5 years, Jason's brother had known the truth. For 5 years, they had kept this secret together, watching Jason play the role of devoted father while knowing he was living a lie. Jason moved out the next day. He couldn't stay in that house. He couldn't sleep in that bed. He couldn't look at the woman who had betrayed him or the photographs of a son who wasn't really his. He rented a motel room across town. It was small, dirty, and depressing, but at least it was honest. For 3 days, he didn't speak to anyone. He didn't answer his phone. He didn't go to work. He just lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how to rebuild a life that had been completely destroyed. On the 4th day, Ethan called. "Dad? Where are you? Mom won't tell me what's going on. Uncle Marcus called and he was crying. What happened?" Jason closed his eyes. Ethan didn't know. He still didn't know the truth. "I need to talk to you," Jason said. "In person. Can you meet me?" They met at a park near the motel. Ethan was confused, scared, clearly aware that something terrible had happened, but not understanding what. Jason sat down on a bench. His son, the boy he had raised, the boy he had loved, the boy he had coached through Little League and helped with homework and taught to drive, sat beside him. "Dad, what's going on? Why did you leave?" Jason took a deep breath. "I found out something," he said slowly. "Something about our family. Something that changes things." "What do you mean?" Jason looked at Ethan. Those familiar eyes, that familiar face, the face he had loved for 16 years. "I'm not your biological father, Ethan. Marcus is." Ethan didn't react at first. He just sat there, frozen, like the words hadn't fully registered. That's not possible. You're my dad. You've always been my dad. Biologically, no. But in every way that matters, no." Ethan stood up. "No, this is insane. You're lying." "I'm not lying. I wish I was." Ethan was backing away now, shaking his head, tears streaming down his face. "Uncle Marcus? Mom and Uncle Marcus? That's disgusting. No, I don't believe you. Ethan, don't call me that. Don't call me anything. I need to go." He turned and ran. Jason didn't chase him. It took 3 months for the family to stabilize. That was a generous word for it. Stabilize implied some kind of order, some kind of healing. In reality, they were all just learning to survive in the wreckage. Jason and Lauren divorced. The proceedings were quick, brutal, and efficient. Jason didn't fight for the house or the savings. He just wanted out. Marcus tried to reach out several times. Jason ignored every call, every text, every attempt at reconciliation. Some betrayals were too deep to forgive, and Ethan was caught in the middle of it all. 6 months later, Ethan showed up at Jason's apartment. He looked older, tired, like the past 6 months had aged him 10 years. "Can we talk?" he asked. Jason opened the door wider. They sat in the small living room, two people who had once been father and son, trying to figure out what they were now. "I've been seeing a therapist," Ethan said. "She's helped me process some of this." "That's good. She asked me a question. She asked me who I considered my father, not biologically, but emotionally. Who was the man who raised me? Who taught me things? Who was there for every important moment of my life?" Jason didn't respond. "It was you," Ethan said. "It was always you. I don't care what some DNA test says. You're my dad. You've always been my dad, and I don't want to lose that." Jason felt his eyes burning. "You haven't lost me," he said. "You never could." Ethan hugged him. For the first time in 6 months, something inside Jason began to heal. Jason never spoke to Marcus again. Some wounds don't close. Some betrayals don't heal. Marcus remained a ghost, a shadow that hovered over family gatherings, a name that was never spoken, but Jason found peace in other ways. He found it in Sunday dinners with Ethan at their new favorite restaurant. He found it in phone calls that lasted hours, talking about nothing and everything. He found it in the knowledge that fatherhood wasn't about biology, it was about showing up. And Jason had never stopped showing up. For decades, Maury Povich stood at the center of family truth and DNA revelations. Calm voice, one envelope, and a sentence that could change lives forever. But this story didn't need a stage. It only needed a man who refused to stop being a father, even when his own brother tried to take that from him.